In the gilded silence of Buckingham Palace, one moment cracked the calm beyond repair. As whispers swirled about Princess Catherine's mysterious disappearance, the public grew restless. But behind those palace doors, the truth was far heavier than expected. Catherine had been quietly diagnosed with a rare autoimmune illness, one that would limit her mobility and disrupt her royal future. While most of the family responded with concern, Queen Camilla reportedly left during a private briefing saying, "Oh please, a little illness," and she disappeared. The comment wasn't supposed to leave the room, but it did, and when Prince William heard it, he didn't speak. He simply walked out and everything changed. The woman fighting to stay strong became the nation's heart. The one who mocked her became its shame. Because this time, the royal rift wasn't political, it was personal, and the world had no trouble choosing a side. Royal disappearance sparks concern. By January 2026, a strange silence settled over the British royal scene. Princess Catherine, usually a constant presence at engagements, school visits and charity events, had not been seen in public for over 2 months. Initially, the palace offered simple explanations: rest, private time, family focus. But royal watchers used to Catherine's consistency weren't convinced this wasn't a vacation. Something was deeply wrong, and the public could feel it. Behind the scenes, Prince William was quietly cancelling appearance after appearance, citing only family reasons. He refused interviews, declined briefings, and was rarely seen outside of Onweir Hall. Insiders reported he was tense, often distracted, and fiercely protective of any mention of Catherine. One courtier noted, "He wasn't angry, he was worried." As the days passed and Catherine remained unseen, speculation gave way to concern, and concern to unease. Some within the palace whispered about medical testing, hinting at chronic fatigue and physical strain that had worsened after her last few public duties. Others said she had been undergoing private evaluations for something more serious. The official line held from. But among those closest to the family, the phrase "ongoing health concerns" was being used more and more. The veil of privacy was starting to look more like a shield. The public picked up on it fast. Online forums buzzed with theories. News anchors gently questioned her absence every time William showed up alone. Social media filled with worried posts. Where is Catherine? Why has no one said anything? What are they hiding? The answers wouldn't come for weeks, but when they did, they would expose not only a hidden illness, but a fracture in the royal family itself. The truth was never supposed to come out this way, but in private meeting rooms and hushed medical offices, Catherine and William had already been facing it for weeks. The tests were real, the diagnosis was heartbreaking, and for a woman so admired for her grace and composure, it struck at her very strength. But the hardest part wasn't the illness, it was how the royal family chose to respond to it. The private diagnosis that shocked the palace. Behind closed doors, after a series of exhaustive tests, Princess Catherine was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder. The disease, its name undisclosed to the public, was affecting her mobility, energy levels, and immune system. It came in waves. Some days were normal, others left her exhausted, aching, barely able to stand for long periods. Doctors gave a clear warning: public stress. She could trigger complications. She needs to reduce appearances drastically, one specialist advised. William was devastated. For a man known for his composed exterior, this hit differently. One aide overheard him say, "How can she suffer like this and still be expected to smile for cameras in private?" He sat beside her hospital bed during tests. He read their children's bedtime stories over the phone while Catherine slept. And when he returned to the palace, he demanded full discretion from staff. No leaks, no slips, no press briefings. Only a handful of senior royals were informed, among them King Charles and Camilla were briefed separately. Charles responded with concern, asking if specialized care would be brought in, but Camilla, his reaction quiet and subtle, gave some attendees cause. She didn't ask many questions. She didn't reach out to Catherine. As one aide noted, she barely reacted at all. 4 weeks, Catherine continued treatments in to learn ants. William restructured his entire schedule to remain by her side, and the palace, for all its polished walls and tied corridors, became a place of energies, compassion from some corners, and indifference from others. No official statement was released, but among staff the truth became clear. This wasn't just an illness, it was a crisis of character, and the responses from the royal family were revealing everything. It might have stayed private, but one moment changed everything. A single comment, dismissive, callous and deeply personal, shattered whatever good will remain inside the family. It wasn't said in front of cameras, it was said behind closed doors. But the words didn't stay hidden, and once they reached William's ears, everything changed. Queen Camilla's callous reaction. The setting was informal, a family briefing in one of Buckingham Palace's private rooms. William had just given an update on Catherine's condition. It was emotional, some in the room were moved, but as the room quieted, Queen Camilla reportedly scoffed and said under her breath, "Oh please, a little illness and she disappears." The room froze, no one left, not even Charles. But the damage was immediate. William said nothing. He stood up, straightened his coat, and walked down. According to multiple sources, Catherine, already physically drained and emotionally fragile, was in tears before the meeting ended. A royal aide later leaked the moment to the press, saying Camilla laughed. She actually laughed under her breath. Everyone saw it, no one said a word. It wasn't just disrespect, it was a betrayal of empathy. Behind the scenes, the fallout was swift. William refused to attend future briefings where Camilla would be present. Catherine, who had remained gracious even in suffering, reportedly told a friend, "I can accept the illness, I can't accept cruelty." For years, tensions between Camilla and William had been managed quietly, diplomatically. But this moment cracked something deeper. One insider put it plainly, that relationship is broken now, for good. Camilla made no apology, nor did she reach out privately to Catherine. Charles, caught in the middle, attempted to downplay the incident. "She didn't mean it," he reportedly told William. "Camilla just processes things differently." But William didn't buy it. To him, it wasn't about processing, it was about character. And after that moment, the fracture within the royal family widened into a quiet, permanent chasm. William's breaking point. The fallout from Camilla comment festered in silence. At first, Prince William tried to focus on Catherine, arrest her morale, her healing. But the moment kept playing in his mind over and over. Camilla dismissive, Catherine crying, and a room full of royals saying nothing. Finally, William did what no one expected. He arranged a private meeting with King Charles, without any age present. The location was Clarence House, but the atmosphere was ice cold. William came prepared, no shouting, just clarity. He demanded a formal apology from Camilla, not to him or to Catherine. "She mocked the mother of your future queen," he said. Charles refused, not with malice, but with discomfort. "She didn't mean it like that." Camilla just react differently to things. That excuse only fueled William's anger. If that's how she reacts to someone's pain, he snapped, "Then I don't want her near my family." The meeting ended with no resolution. William stood up, thanked his father for his time, and left. That night he returned to an Hall where Catherine was resting with their children. The next morning he instructed royal staff no more direct communication with Camilla. Any messages were to go through intermediaries. Events she would attend, declined. Photos with her out of the question. It was the clearest line William had ever drawn. The prince, known for diplomacy, had reached his breaking point. One long-time royal aide said, "We've seen William angry before, but never like this." This wasn't anger, it was protective fury. He wasn't just standing up for his wife, he was quietly redefining how he would engage with the institution moving forward, not as a passive player, but as a man who sets his own boundaries. But while William's rage burned in private meetings and royal corridors, Catherine remained calm at home, carrying the emotional load of motherhood alongside physical pain. And for the three little people who knew her only as Mummy, the truth had to be softened, explained, and wrapped in love. What came next wasn't royal at all. It was deeply human. Catherine's strength had on my whole life moved slowly, deliberately. Princess Catherine woke later than usual, moved gently through the day, and avoided the heavy demands of official paperwork. Her body needed rest, but in the mornings and evenings her focus was always on George, Charlotte, and Louise. They knew something was different. She smiled more carefully, she walked slower, and one morning over breakfast, Charlotte asked the question everyone had been avoiding, "Mommy, will you still come to school?" Things Catherine paused, then she smiled and reached for Charlotte's hand. "Even if I walk slower," she said, "I'll still walk with you." It wasn't a promise made from certainty, but from determination. William, watching from across the table, blinked back tears. He later told a friend, "She's still the pillar of this family, even as she fights silently." George, old enough to sense stress, but too young to understand its cause, became more protective. He started offering to carry her tea, bring her a book, or check if she needed help with the stairs. Louis, unaware of illness but sensitive to mood, simply said, "I like it when you stay home more." It was innocent, but it shattered William inside. "He doesn't know why yet," he said quietly, "but he'll remember how she stayed kind." Despite her own exhaustion, Catherine tried to maintain normalcy. Family dinners, continued evening walks in the garden when she had the strength, were still shared. On better days, she sketched quietly with Charlotte or read aloud to Louis. On worse days, she simply laid nearby, present even if weary. Through it all, William remained close, often skipping or rescheduling engagements, just to sit beside her in the living room, while the children played and while the family drew closer in private. The outside world began to notice the absence. It started as speculation, then concern, and finally, through subtle leaks from royal insiders, the public learned what the palace had hoped to delay. Catherine was unwell. But what no one expected was just how fiercely the people would respond once they knew the truth. Public reaction and sympathy surged. The news didn't break with a press release. It broke through whispers, royal insider accounts, subtle hints from reporters, and quiet confirmations that Catherine was indeed battling a serious condition. Almost instantly, social media flooded with support hashtags like #We stand with Catherine, #A real queen, and "Protect her grace" began trending across the UK and beyond. People didn't need details. They saw the silence, they saw the absence, and they responded with compassion. At Kensington Palace, thousands of flowers, cards, and drawings began piling up outside the gates. One card read, "You carry us even when you can't carry yourself." Another simply said, "Thank you for being human." News anchors grew teary while reporting her condition. Tabloids that had once scrutinized her fashion choices now ran front-page tributes. For the first time in years, the royal family wasn't a source of gossip. It was a mirror reflecting public love and concern. Camilla, however, faced a brutal backlash. Though her comment had never been officially confirmed, the palace's refusal to deny it only added to the storm. Online forums exploded. One post read, "How dare she laugh at the woman carrying this monarchy?" Another said, "The Queen Consort mocked a mother in pain," and we noticed. Public trust in Camilla plummeted. Her approval ratings fell below 30%, the lowest since her marriage to Charles. Inside the palace, PR advisors scrambled. Camilla was quietly removed from upcoming appearances. Rumors circulated of emergency meetings between communications staff and royal aides, but the damage was done. One former press officer put it bluntly, "You can't ring a bell," and that one echoed. Meanwhile, William and Catherine remained silent, their absence speaking volumes, louder than any press statement ever could. Palace damage control too late. As support for Princess Catherine surged, Buckingham Palace was pushed into an uncomfortable corner. They couldn't ignore the outpouring of love from the public, or the rising anger toward Queen Camilla. In response, a brief statement was issued. "The Princess of Wales is managing a private health matter and thanks the public for their kind wishes." It was vague, safe, and foremost, it was too late. The silence had gone on too long. The damage had already been done. Behind closed doors, meetings grew tense. PR advisors pushed to temporarily pull Camilla from public events, at least until media outrage died down. Charles resisted, at first insisting it would look like guilt, but after a particularly brutal headline, "The Queen Who Laughed," he agreed. Camilla, his next 5 scheduled engagements were quietly cancelled. Royal press officers worked overtime drafting statements, tweaking language, and begging media outlets to emphasize healing and unity. Prince William, however, was done with optics when Charles reached out privately asking if they could have a family dinner to mend things. William declined. "You protected her feelings over my wife's pain," he reportedly told his father. "I don't need dinner, I need space." The emotional wall between William and the rest of the senior royals had gone from crack to canyon. His silence wasn't just about grief. It was a clear message. Within the palace, staff morale dipped. Some aides, especially those close to Catherine, grew openly resentful of the Queen Consort's presence. People are cold to her now, one insider revealed. It's not open rebellion, but it's not loyalty either. The internal divide mirrored the external fallout. A royal family known for managing crises quietly was now facing one it could no longer contain, and with every quiet snub and unanswered call it became clear the center was no longer holding. By late spring the monarchy had shifted, not in ceremony but in spirit. One woman, sidelined by illness, had become a symbol of grace. Their still wearing the crown had become a lightning rod for resentment. And as Catherine re-emerged, rarely but powerfully, it was clear that something deeper than protocol had changed, something permanent, a silent divide that changes the monarchy. When Catherine finally appeared in public again, it wasn't with fanfare, no speeches, no staged photos, just a brief walk with Prince William hand in hand leaving a charity function. Cameras caught the moment, her posture slower, or smile softer, but her eyes steady. The nation exhaled. She's still standing, one headline read, and standing taller than anyone expected. It wasn't just a health update, it was a quiet act of insurance. Since her diagnosis, or appearances have remained rare, but each one now carries emotional weight. When Catherine attends events, she's met with applause, not out of duty, but out of love. Supporters wave signs like "Stay strong, our Queen," and "You carry this family." For visibility may have lessened, but her symbolic presence has only grown. One royal historian noted, in Catherine's absence the monarchy found its humanity. In her pain it found its reflection. William, meanwhile, has stepped up, not just in public duty, but in quiet protection. He shields Catherine from stress, controls their media exposure, and has taken on more solo roles. "He's becoming the shield she always was for him," said a long-time royal correspondent. Their bond, once admired, now appears unshakable. They operate as a unit, united by love, trial, and shared distrust of those who failed them. And then there's Coming. We're still present, still wearing the title, but increasingly alone in palace halls. A relationship with William is reportedly non-existent. With Catherine it's worse. Cordial in the rare moments they must share space, but otherwise void of interaction. Staff no longer assume joint engagements. Photographers no longer hope for family portraits. As one palace aide put it, "There's no war, just silence." And sometimes silence says everything. In the end, Catherine's illness did more than pause royal duties. It reshaped them. It revealed a divide that had long been whispered about, but never confirmed. And no, the monarchy stands on a new line, drawn not by scandal or succession, but by compassion, or the lack of it. And in that line the public has chosen its queen, not by crown, but by character. In the grand halls of monarchy, strength has often been defined by silence. But Catherine showed us a different kind of strength, not the kind hidden behind palatial walls or rehearsed smiles, but the kind that lives in soft insurance, quiet grace, and the unconditional love for one's family. Her illness, though private, became a mirror. It didn't just reveal her fragility, it revealed who stood beside her and who looked away. As the months unfolded, the contrast became unavoidable. While Catherine stepped back with humility and pain, the palace machine carried on. But it was her absence, not anyone else's presence, that the public felt. Flowers bloomed outside Kensington Palace Mess. Ages poured in, and the woman who never asked for the spotlight became the center of national affection. Meanwhile, Camilla moment, one of laughter, mockery, and stunning misjudgment, left an indelible scar, not because it was loud, but because it was so casually cruel. It confirmed what many feared, that the heart of the monarchy had lost its rhythm. That compassion had been replaced by performance. But William didn't stay silent. He acted not with speeches, but with distance. Protecting Catherine became his purpose. And in that protective love, many saw the future of the monarchy redefined, not by hierarchy, by humanity. Because at the end of it all, titles will fade, scandals will be rewritten, but the way someone stands beside a loved one in illness, that stays. And the people have made their choice not based on bloodlines or crowns, but on character. Catherine didn't just survive a diagnosis, she quietly redrew the monarchy's emotional map. And in doing so she reminded us all that resilience doesn't shout. It endures, and sometimes the loudest message comes not from the throne, but from the quiet strength of the woman who carried it with grace, even when the palace didn't carry her.